All the action packed in 180 minutes. Power Breakfast with Tessa Dooms. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m.
The time is 6:20. And you're on Power Breakfast this morning with Tessa Dooms. As I said, we are looking into this SAFAir story around the strike of the pilots. And so, of course, there are a number of negotiations and agreements on the go. So I wanted to just check in with SAFAir. We wanted to have them on the show, but they've given us their views on where these negotiations are at, and then we'll talk to one of the unions.
Kirby Gordon, Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafair. We can confirm that all scheduled departures have been operating as normal following Monday's strike-related disruptions. FlySafair's on-time performance yesterday was 97%. We had a constructive engagement yesterday afternoon with Solidarity under the guidance of the CCMA, and we will reconvene again on Friday for further work toward a resolution on the strike action.
So that was FlySafair's side of this. They believe that their operations are now starting to get back to normal, but the negotiations continue. And so on the line with us, we have the union rep for the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa, Mmametlwe Sebei. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mmametlwe. So from the side of the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa, where do you believe you are at right now in terms of the negotiations with FlySafair?
Well, let me clarify one thing. Giwusa is not party to the strike. We've issued a statement basically expressing our solidarity with the, pilots, and obviously the union that is Solidarity. But much more importantly, we were condemning the agreement that has been entered into between FlySafair and, of course, South African Airways, because what we are concerned about is that, South African Airways has undertaken to break the strike of the pilots by actually taking all the flights, as well as, basically forcing their workers to cross the picket line of the FlySafair. They are doing that under a pretense that they have an emergency or agreement for emergencies to help each other. But we are saying, in what world is an industrial dispute that is, a strike action by the employees of one airline against their employer over conditions of employment ever an emergency? What you are having here amounts to a state-subsidized escaping and breaking of the picket line, and of course that is unacceptable, especially when that airline, that is SAA, is subsidized by the billion of how to earn taxes of the same worker.
Absolutely. So what you're talking about here is what you believe is bad faith behavior from FlySafair, working with SAA, and of course SAA, as you're saying, breaking the picket line here. So undermining, in your view, the negotiations and the negotiating power of the striking pilots at FlySafair.
Absolutely. I mean, and just in terms of an update from, the conversation, I had with, the General Secretary of Solidarity, it is that FlySafair is now digging the heels, and obviously that would be arrogance informed by the fact that their operations would be, normal, and that it is obviously down also to this escaping agreement between, SAA and FlySafair. And I think we all have to be concerned, because what does this really mean when the state uses our taxes? I mean, this is an airline, for that matter, that was just bailed out, in the recent period from the collapse, but also in previous period, to actually undermine lawful strikes involving legitimate demands of the workers. I mean, look at the issues here. In fact, if anything, I would say that the role of the state would be to uphold the demands of the workers, including their understandable and, in fact, a public lofty demand
Yeah.
because they are complaining and protesting the working hours. Now, in what world would the state not be worried that people flying and people operating, an air transport are saying they are working abnormal hours, getting exhausted, because that is a matter of public health, safety,
Yeah.
right? And that should be worrying all of us, not just government. And our government, if any, is concerned about the interests of public safety, is concerned about the interests of the workers, and they should be siding with these workers, not breaking their strike.
Well, there is a degree of separation here, at least one degree of separation between the state itself and this agreement, because, of course, although South African Airways is a state-owned entity for the most part, would it not be strange for the government itself, the minister or anyone with that level of political will and responsibility to step in to what SAA is doing? What would be the correct way of government's response here? Because SAA could well say, well, we are looking at the financial interest of this entity. We are looking at what we believe is best and in the best interest of the entity, and that we don't have the kind of political responsibility that, for example, the Department of Transport or the Department, I'm not even sure if this sits within as a public enterprise. So would that not be crossing political lines?
Absolutely not. Already, in fact, what crosses the political line is exactly this argument. And I've asked the question, in what world is an industrial action by employees protesting over their conditions of employment constituting an emergency? We negotiate, right, on whatever terms we have with employers, whether annual or after some time. These negotiations are foreseeable, they are planned for, and everybody knows and understands that the laws of the country means that the workers have a right to strike, and if, amongst others, they're not satisfied with the offer on the table. Now, this sets a dangerous precedent where actually, and especially in the case of state-owned enterprises, but actually of any other business for that matter, that you could have this kind of argument in an economy particularly built of the slavery of the working class, the neo-colonial slavery of the working class. If we were to have businesses having this sort of agreement to step over each other, that will undermine the collective power of the workers, the right to strike, and in fact will condemn the workers to perpetual poverty that we are seeing across vast sections of the economy.
And so who are you asking here to take action? Who would be the right authority, and what do you do next in order to enforce this? Because you could be talking to FlySafair and SAA, and it doesn't seem that they would be interested in just cancelling this agreement without some kind of leverage or pressure from elsewhere. So what is the step that you are going to be taking, and who are you going to be engaging with to bear the pressure down that you want?
So firstly, we demand that Minister of Public Enterprises, alongside the SAA board, has to intervene. We demand that Parliament, but also Commission, made up of representatives of the workers' movement, should investigate this agreement. This agreement and the terms of it should be, made public, but actually investigated for whether they did not really violate, if not the clear letter of the law, certainly the spirit of the law, that workers, must be collectively bargaining with their employers in freedom, and certainly without the undue interference of the state and the state-owned enterprises in shoring up private capital and their corporate profiteering against the workers' resistance that is fighting for legitimate demands for wage increases, but also for other working conditions, in this case being, of course, working hours, which is a matter, in our view, not only of workers and pilots' safety, but also of public safety.
Absolutely. One wonders whether an entity like the Competition Commission may also be of use here, because what you're talking about is a version of collusion that may not be as direct and glaring, but certainly, it's an anti-competitive behavior in terms of the rights of the pilots, not necessarily other companies, but I do think that they may have some way to help resolve this. But thank you so much for bringing in that angle to what has been, what seems quite a easy, straight down the line to understand union strike, but I think this does complicate it quite a bit. Thank you so much. That is Mmametlwe Sebei, who is from the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa.